Hey guys, it's Christian from Emotions in Wine. So today we will discover if what the sommelier in Zagreb told me months ago, that Kutjevo in Slavonia is his top area for wine, top wine region, is true, or if, at least from my point of view, I consider still better the coast. So we are talking about the coast. We start, of course, from the northern part, so Istra, Kvarner, so Istria and Kvarner, the big peninsula bordering Slovenia, not far from Italy, and then Rijeka town with all the islands in the Kvarner, quite big islands, quite relevant, but not that much in the wine scene. That is a recent development, so it's still very junior, let's say, only small productions. Žlahtina is the main white grape, easy, refreshing, summery. There are a bit of other things, but it's still even difficult to find. Only if you go there, basically even in Zagreb, you don't find almost anything. Only if you go there, you can taste something. I tried a couple of things. Of course, Istra is stealing all the attention. Is quite historical, even if we will see later less than the south, Dalmatia, but it was developed earlier also because of the Italian heritage. If you go there, it's looking like Tuscany. The towns are mostly Venetian reminders. So, and there is still a lot of Italian minority living there. So it all contributed. Also the tourism easier because there was tourism almost all year round. Even the truffle, remember, very important product of Istra, white truffle. So all the things that help this region to be already higher even in Yugoslavia days. So even when tourism were developed, many new wineries, some even a bit fancy, I would say, beautiful landscapes, and is quite interesting because it's focused on Malvasia Istarska, so Malvasia Istriana called in Italian, and Teran, the red, but there are several other minor grapes plus many international, quite important Chardonnay, Sauvignon, Merlot, Cabernet, even some Pinot Noir. It's not standardized. There are 4 different soils, there are different altitudes, coast or inner. There is also the mountainous part when you end up the peninsula, even above 1,000 meters. So it's very diverse. So giving different results, different climates, different altitudes. So even that can give a sort of zoning for different grapes or different style of wines. Malvasia is also very versatile. Nowadays it's made sparkling, fresh, uh, vibrant, a bit more structured, even orange, so macerated, amphora. So there is a lot of development. First, because of the versatility of the grape and the different characteristics of terroirs. And second, because they are experimenting. You can find many simple Malvasia, still not that cheap, but affordable. But you can find many very interesting wines. It's still not my go-to destination. If you ask me about top white wines, for sure, I appreciate. It's very interesting to visit. In particular, as I said, we will mention a few wineries that you can go easily even without booking, but it's missing something to me in overall picture. There are some exceptional wines, both whites and reds, but in general, it's missing something, given that soul that you can find even in few wineries in Kutjevo or in Dalmatia. The first winery to mention is Omo. Milan Budinsky, one of the most respected winemakers in the country, started his own project finally. He is originally, I think, from Dalmatia, but he was a long time working in Istra, and he started recently his own project. So in the north of the peninsula, bordering Slovenia, there is mostly grey soil, so that Ponca style, like in Collio, also in Slovenia, we see in some regions the same. So classic for mineral wines, so that flesh gray soil with limestone and other components, friable, and neighboring also a bit more in the center, let's say, by even center north, white, so more limestone, so more rocky. These are the two best locations for the refined and vibrant and with more acidity and longevity, also higher altitudes. And Omo is making his wine really from the white part. But many top wineries are in this area. In the north, there is also the conjunction of the four different soils. Even the brown, which is fertile soil, usually not for wine, more for other products. But there is the really getting close to each other. The red, so the clay, terra rossa, rich in iron from the coast, the gray, the white, and even the brown. Omo has said on the white, he is not a place to visit. He is doing the garage styles. This is his new project. But if you have the chance, try it because I was impressed. Age a bit longer, very vibrant, very great complexity, very fresh still. So outstanding wines. Kozlovic instead is probably the most famous in the area, but is a bit more north. So on the gray soil mostly. They built an incredible structure. You can visit easily. They have a range of different products. They are experimenting a lot, but with an eye to tradition. And the Santa Lucia single vineyard, which is considered one of the very best in the region, is giving them some Malvasia white. I think they do even a couple of different versions, but I tried the 2018, age several years, outstanding wine. And then the red is a blend instead, also very interesting. So they are a reference, sure address to do a visit there. Still neighboring in the same area in the north is to mention Cabola. I tried recently with an upcomer, I would say, even if seems they have long history, generations, and the structure is already welcoming. So another one to visit is really close to Kozlovic, and I was quite impressed from their regular Malvasia. So seems is one of the area for sure is one of the most vocated, as I hinted already. So that helps. You can try the wines from all the parts. On the coast, where is the Terra Rossa, the red soil is more interesting for the reds, but you can try also nice Malvasia. But of course, those that I'm mentioning are the most interesting, the most vibrant, the most attractive, also for a bit of aging. But nowadays, also in the south, there are more upcomers, even if I'm not going to mention them. Then in the middle of Istra, there are several interesting ones too. Benvenuti is one of the references there. There is the higher altitudes also because we are already moving towards the mountains. There is mostly white soil and as said, higher altitudes even up to 400 meters. So Benvenuti and Tomaj are two top references there. And interestingly, also making great reds. You can think a bit cooler, so maybe less vocated, but surprisingly nice results. So remember, Terran, then they make also the other reds, Merlot Cabernet, as I mentioned. Terran has a big problem, high acidity, is in need of long aging to be interesting to drink and to gain complexity. So for sure, on these kind of soils, the acidity is also more remarkable. Limestone or cooler all helps that. So that's why usually the terrain is more interesting from the coast, a bit warmer, and then clay soil, so giving a bit more roundness to rebalance a bit the acidity. So going on the red soil on the coast, to mention Coronica, very historical, always famous, especially for the reds, but also his Malvasia always very interesting. And he's also making some new things lately. And then the Grassi, which is the most particular of all, not from the red soil, he's also more north, but he's out of the box. He's making strange grapes, also French, like Petit Verdot, incredible Pinot Noir, long aging wines. So he is a bit out of the box in that sense. He's making different things. He's not that focused. Of course, he's making Malvasia and Terran, but he's more focused on other things. And completely out of the box, Clay, to mention the most famous probably for macerated orange wines, also in this area mostly. So as you see, most of the main names are tendentially in the center north. Another story completely is Dalmatia. First appellations in the 60s given there. The biggest portion of indigenous varieties are there, both whites and reds. Is quite extended, so there are many different style of wines, different climates and landscapes. Of course, it's more rocky, more limestone, karst. That is the key ingredient, let's say, of Dalmatia. So Dalmatia offers much more. And then, most importantly, the only common point of the whole region, hot and dry, which would let you think bolder wines, less for longevity and less vibrant. Also, that is partially untrue because of what nature is always doing, finding its way. So all these native grapes varieties in Mediterranean, you have several options, as I repeated in other videos. Even in that kind of condition, as we saw also in Sardinia for the sulcis, the natural development finds a way. So there are grapes with high natural acidity. They have a proper ripening season. So you can have, of course, tendentially they are richer, more complex, bolder, both whites and reds, but some that can age. And we will see soon the most incredible example of everything, define all the rules that will give you the final conclusion on all this trip. So the Dalmatia is divided into three regions, so north, central, south, and inner. So the north is still up and coming, a lot of experimentation, still few wineries, many very tiny. Wine tourism is still limited to few spots, especially in the northern part near Zadar, there is very little still. A bit more in Šibenik area, but even there, many tiny. But there is also something very historic. Bulzavac, near Primošten, so a bit south of Šibenik, is an historic spot. Very different from everything, as you can see. On the sea, rocky, very dry, windy, very little topsoil, old bush plants with the small walls dividing small parts of the acreage. So it's an incredible place. Historic centuries, there are all old vines there, and that is already a sign of something special, even in this less developed part of the region. Babic is the grape there, so it's the second most important red grape in Croatia. Is a brother of Plavasmali, but is a bit more refined, more elegant, Pinot Noirish in a way, so less powerful than Plavac, and is a symbol of this region. There are only about 100,000 bottles produced so far, with more than 10 wineries, so imagine. And must be done in that small part near Primošten, because some other attempts a bit inner are not giving the same results. So really that spot is the perfect habitat for Babic. Few wineries as hinted. Grazin is the symbol. He is also a professor at the University of Enology. They have a wine bar, wine shop in the center of Primošten, so that is the spot to visit for sure, to try something and even to buy. Very tiny others. Pergin deserves a mention. There is inner up the hills, so you need to drive up, but is a good structure to welcome. You can try, and they make a very elegant Babic. I was quite impressed. Baracca, so expanding a bit the area, is a bit more on the Šibenik side, but they have some top Babic because they have properties spread it around. They are one of the upcoming, very good for welcoming, small, but they have hospitality, so you can go to visit. And besides the Babic, they have Poship, very interesting, and then other local varieties that are developing. Whites are mostly Debit and Marastina, quite easy whites. Marastina, there are some examples with a bit more complexity. And then between the other reds of the area, Lassina, Pinot Noirish is worth a mention. And inner, more to Knin area, there are several other wineries focusing more on these grapes. Babic is mostly on the coast. And Ante Sladic and Bibic are two addresses to mention, even for the visit. You can walk in. B-Beach has also a luxury built property apartments, so that is very interesting. They are the most expensive, but even the most prestigious in a way, and they make some particular wines, a lot of blends. So it's an interesting part of Dalmatia that is developing. So guys, the video is coming out very long, then I had to change the plan and decide to break it into two parts. So this is the first part. Soon will be the next week. So like, subscribe to stay tuned for the new release, to follow us in general, to support us. See you next week with the grand finale about South Dalmatia, and salute!